All right, so last week, I spoke with a founder who made $4 million last year, but only had $80,000 in savings. He checked his bank balance every single day and had this anxiety, and it's not because he was bad with money. It wasn't because he was irresponsible. It's because he did what every single founder does. You see, he focused all his energy on the business and hoped that money would then ultimately sort itself out, but it didn't. So today I'm going to show you why revenue and wealth are completely different operating systems and why founders that are typically between 1 and 10 million are stuck in what I call the dead zone. And we'll talk about the 3-part framework that connects the bridge between what your business makes and what you actually keep. So if you're making good money, but you still feel broke, then this is for you. Now, I'm Charlie Gaudet. I've spent the last 16 plus years helping founders escape what I call the founder's trap. And that's when a business can only grow when the founder is directly involved. And they often find themselves falling in the setup trap, the sales trap, or the scale trap. Now, most founders are stuck in at least one of them. But here's the blind spot that nobody talks about. Even the founders who escape the trap, those who build the systems and who scale the revenue, most of them still don't have the personal wealth they want. You see, the good news is, well, revenue went up, wealth stayed flat. And it's that gap that's really destroying their soul, right? So let me explain what I mean by that dead zone. All right, so let me talk about that dead zone. Now, that dead zone is where revenue actually exists, but wealth doesn't. And so the gap between revenue and wealth over here, this gap is what we call the dead zone. So you can see, like, year one here in my business, year one, I was making $1 million, but, I felt broke. And then year number 2, I made $2 million. Thing is even though revenue was going up, the gap between the revenue and my wealth was widening. Therefore, I'm working harder, but it made me, for whatever reason, feel broker. And as we moved over to year 3, as I was making $3 million, I had the same stress, even in many ways more stress, yet I had a bigger spreadsheet. Each time I thought I was reaching that next milestone, and that would finally unlock the financial security that I wanted, never actually did. Because, see, revenue is flow. Revenue is flow. But wealth is state. Now, you can have mass amounts of flow and you can have zero state. You can also think about it almost like a bathtub. You see, if you think about a bathtub, revenue is the faucet. But if the drain is open and there's no plug, then it doesn't actually matter how hard you turn the handle, the tub never actually stays full. So it doesn't actually matter how hard you turn the handle because the tub never fills. See, most founders, they're running that faucet over at full blast. The drain's wide open. And then they're wondering, why is my tub empty? The faucet's not the problem. It's the system. And here's where it gets worse. You see, advice that you're getting is designed for somebody else. You see, on the business side of things, you might be working with a coach to scale you over to that next level. And, they'll tell you you need to hire faster, and they'll tell you got to close bigger deals. And then, let's say revenue ends up going up. But then on the personal side of things, your financial advisor tells you to max out that 401k. They'll tell you to buy index funds. They'll tell you to cut expenses. Now, both are fine, actually. Both of these approaches, they're fine. They're fine for different people. Thing is you don't have a predictable paycheck. You're a founder. You're an entrepreneur. Chances are you're experiencing volatile revenue, lumpy cash flow, business debt that's actually leverage, opportunity cost on every single dollar. Dave Ramsey, smart dude, his playbook was built for people with a W-2 income. Susie Orman, her advice assumes biweekly direct deposit. Your accountant optimizes for taxes, not wealth building. Now, Robert Kiyosaki said something about my friend Garrett Gunderson. This is the part that opened my eyes. He said, if you want to stay poor or middle class, then, listen to Susie Orman or Dave Ramsey. But if you want to get the financial education of the rich, then you want to listen to Garrett Gunderson. Now, that's not a random endorsement. That's the rich dad, poor dad telling you the rules are different for builders like you. See, business expertise lives in one silo. Financial expertise lives in another. And you're stuck somewhere in the gap trying to figure out how to connect them, but nobody actually connects the bridge. And that's the problem. So then what's the answer? So there's 3 steps between business revenue and then personal wealth. And they happen in order. You see, part number 1, right there, is when you want to stabilize revenue. So you don't just want to grow your revenue. You want to make your revenue predictable. So you can't build wealth on a feast and famine roller coaster type of income if your revenue graph looks like a heart monitor, right? You're not ready for wealth planning. You're kind of still in the survival mode with a nice title, right? But this is what we do over here at Predictable Profits. We help founders build systems through what we call the Predictable Profits operating system so that revenue becomes predictable month after month, year after year. And it's not dependent on the founder's personal effort. So in this way, you've got systems that run without growth sitting squarely on your shoulders. Then we go to part number 2. And part number 2 is where we optimize cash flow. This is the bridge that most builders actually never end up building, right? This bridge between stabilizing revenue and then all the way over here, which becomes part number 3, which is building wealth. You see, it's how money actually moves from your business into then your personal wealth. So we're not just talking about pay yourself first type of methodology. We're talking about an actual system. This is what you would call the plug for the bathtub. So then now as we start talking about building wealth, that's the part that everybody wants to skip to. Look, just tell me where to invest. But without parts 1 and parts number 2, ultimately that's a fantasy, right? Now remember that founder that was making $4 million in 80,000 personal. Now he's not going to fix it by just adding more deals. He gets out of it by starting part number 1, which is to stabilize his revenue, building consistent, predictable month after month growth. So then he can then build that bridge of the same business, but a different operating system and ultimately, hey, a different life. Now here's the part that ultimately should keep you up at night. You see, when you're in the founder's trap, and that's a gap between revenue and then wealth that gets continually wider over time, particularly as a business is more dependent on you. Think about those divergent lines. Revenue's going up, but wealth isn't staying flat year after year. And that gap just accelerates. So the founder making $2 million with no wealth system loses more every single year than a founder making $500,000 with a wealth system because opportunity cost compounds. So you're not just leaving money on the table. You're actually leaving your future on the table and your family's future and your freedom. Because every year you ignore the gap, cost of closing that gap, it goes up. That's why I reached out to my buddy, Garrett Gunderson. And so on February 24th and February 26th, we are co-hosting a live workshop together, Garrett Gunderson and myself, on building wealth, personal and business wealth. Now, Garrett, if you don't know him, he's a New York Times best-selling author. He's built multiple 8-figure businesses. He's endorsed by Robert Kiyosaki. He's not a financial advisor reading scripts. This is a builder who understands the founder's world. So we're going to teach all 3 parts: stabilizing revenue, optimizing cash flow, building wealth. This is the exact system I wish existed when I was making millions, yet still feeling broke. So look, you got to be there. This is going to be epic. And we've got some really, really cool surprises for those who can attend live with us. It's all happening on Zoom. All right, so if you want more details, all you got to do is check out the registration link below in the description. And look, if you're doing somewhere between $1 and $10 million and you feel like you're working harder than you've ever worked before and still not making the money that you know you deserve, then this was built for you. So, hey, I'll see you on February 24th and again on February 26th. This is Charles Gaudet. I'll see you soon.